This was just so classic Star Wars. They do all these like wide establishing shots. We get so many poetry moments, and even to properties like Solo. I feel like even though we're not in the grander, like juicy, meaty, juicy plot lines in this episode, there were all these winks and nods to other stuff that we love in Star Wars.
Yeah.
And I'm getting really amped up about this. I'm here for these poetry moments always.
Krypton to Alderaan. Krypton to Alderaan. Krypton to Alderaan. Krypton to Alderaan.
Welcome, everyone, to Krypton to Alderaan. I'm Joey, your Star Wars lover, and with me is Royish Goodlooks, your Star Wars song guy.
Hello, Joey. Hello, podcast. And trolls in the comments.
Thank you to the commenter. I'm sorry I don't have your name pulled up, who called Royce the Star Wars song guy. That is how I will be referring to him from now on. And we are the podcast that analyzes nerdy pop culture stuff, but it's mostly Star Wars. Pew pew. And this episode we'll be discussing Star Wars. That's right. The Bad Batch, Season 2, Episode 12, Juggernaut. Not to be confused with the X-Men character of the same name, who's not a mutant. He gets his powers from a special crystal.
My powers are magical!
And not the one that you saw in X3, whatever that was called. Anyway, but first, I just can't get over it. And we have to say this at the beginning of every episode, but also I love saying this at the beginning of every episode. I'm so excited and humbled and grateful that we are continuing to grow. We have 542 subscribers as of this episode, which is incredible. What is even more incredible is that last episode at the beginning, I put out a call to action to get 5,000 views on our last Bad Batch episode. We got halfway there.
Whoa!
We got 2,500 views, which is incredible. That's like the best one of our episodes has done that quickly ever. We've gotten into the thousands over time, but in a week, even a few days, just incredible to see. So thank you, honestly, genuinely, thank you so much to everyone who's subscribed, who's tuned in, who's told a friend, who's been supporting us and everything like that. It's just so great to see. And it makes it, I mean, it's already fun to do this show, but it really, really makes it very fun and validating to do this show, to see people enjoying what we have to say and or not enjoying and still commenting. I don't know. There's an element to that as well, but it's amazing. And thank you so much. If you're listening and haven't hit subscribe. It's not going to hurt you any. And then you'll see when we make more stuff, and then you'll get to listen to that, and we'll continue to grow, and it'll be great. And thank you. And before we recorded, Royce said, I thought you were crazy for asking for 5,000 views. And it's true, but we did get halfway there. So
Big, hairy, audacious goal is good to have. I'm pretty excited about it too. It makes it feel like we're a real podcast. As silly as that is to say, when people tune in and comment and it feels like you're not shouting into a void. We've all been there when you post something and you don't get any likes or comments. That's not the reason why we do it, but it certainly validates the process. And just like Joey said, we are thrilled to see that. We appreciate it. And let's get on with the show. Joey, punch it.
Ooh, I get to punch it this time. Okay, I start every episode that way. Have you noticed that? Do you cut that out? Me saying okay at the beginning of every single one?
I feel it out. Every time it's a little different.
When we were kids, Royce, do you remember cartoons just ripping the heart right out of your chest and watching on as you dissolved into a puddle of tears? Did that happen in cartoons when we were kids? Because that is the way cartoons are making me feel now.
Huh. Yeah, that's interesting. No, that's definitely, to me, is more of an adult thing. Like even just Futurama was on the other day, the episode with the dog, and like, man, I recently lost a pet, and it's like, yeah, this is breaking my heart here. But only as an adult do I get those feelings.
Right. And Futurama was always geared as I think more of an adult kind of show, maybe.
Yeah, but it came out when I was like 10, so...
Yeah. I mean, it's the same with The Simpsons. But in terms of like X-Men and stuff like that when we were kids, maybe I should go back and watch the original series. But between The Bad Batch, this week's episode 5 of X-Men 97, which we got to talk about that show. Between those two things, absolutely heartbreaking. The Bad Batch has been heartbreaking all this season. And then to top it all off, on top of those two things, Royish Goodlooks, of all people, released a song today that I watched first thing in the morning and have had just a very sad, somber day since then. I love the song. I shouldn't, that's not the thing. It's a heartbreaking song with heartbreak in the title.
I'm sorry to you and the other couple thousands of people that were like, hey, they're supposed to be happy-go-lucky, carefree songs. Jar, 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 bings. Yeah, so I feel you. The song came from a place of pain, so we're all in this together sort of thing. So sorry, but it's what it had to be.
Sorry. Hashtag sorry, not sorry. It's a great song. Everyone go listen to it on the Royish Good Looks show. What's it called?
Broken Heart.
Broken Heart, a Star Wars song.
Get the tissues ready.
Yeah, you better. Anyway, that is all to say that this episode of The Bad Batch isn't what I expected it would be. Is that fair to say? I really expected it to open and us get to see like some interaction between Omega and CX2 on the way to Tantiss and maybe having some conversation and maybe her like infusing him with a little bit of good or hope or something. Nope, we're just straight there. That really set up limiting my expectations for the rest of this episode.
Oh, yeah, you wanted it to start off with like Omega is already, because she was meditating last episode that she was planning the mission in her head sort of thing, that she's going to start on the ship on the way there. As soon as she gets off the ship, she's like messing with Hemlock. Like, no, I want to be here. You're right. They could have taken a totally different angle. No, the assassin's like pushing her around. I was like, oh man, this is, like you said, it's maybe not what you expected, but not fun either.
No, a surprise to be sure. And you know what? Not necessarily a welcome one. I think the main thing is here, I have very limited notes. I'm not going to say no notes. We'll still get that no notes gif in there, but I have limited notes on this. It was not a super juicy or meaty juicy episode. We're going to get into stuff we loved about this episode, I think, and breaking some stuff down. But I honestly, I think my hot takeaway here is I hope the last 3 episodes are not like this one.
I know. And that's like, that really does have to be the title thumbnail for this one, Joey, because I think that's maybe what's on most people's minds if you're just trying to grade it real quickly. But yeah, we selfishly want the meaty, juicy, meaty plot line. And I think they snuck some of that stuff in here. You know, we're bringing back, Rampart, which like I had to think about where he was from before. And I'm not going to lie, I had to read his Wikipedia page. Oh, that's right. All right. He's that guy. Okay. Yeah. There's no shame in that. But I like how they bookended it. We've done this before in a couple of other Star Wars shows where like in Mando, when we went to Coruscant, we opened with Mando and Bo-Katan. We go to Coruscant for like a really long time. And then the end, we're back to Mando. And that was another kind of complaint of like, where's the Mandalorian in the Mandalorian show? But we got this sort of side quest adventure episode that particular week, which built on the world. Whether you liked it or not, that's up to you. But it's not an uncommon sort of structure in some of the series that we've had so far to kind of bookend it. We wanted to see Omega and these children and Omega causing a ruckus because she's our favorite character. But we got an adventure in the middle. Yeah. Adventure in the middle of the week, right? That's how we should think of these episodes.
Yeah, there were lots of expectations that I had to my own detriment that weren't met. Something that I expected to happen that I'm kind of glad we didn't go in is like seeing the fallout of Omega making that sacrifice on Pabu. We're just introduced back to Clone Force 99. Wreckers kind of got a headache and they all know that Omega made the sacrifice. There's no fallout between Hunter and Crosshair there, which would have been like a very easy, tropey way to do it. So I'm really glad that we kind of skip ahead and that like Hunter is just the eye on the prize. He's like, who do we have to go to? What do we have to do? He's not like angry at Crosshair or anything like that. He's just boom, boom, boom. He's the leader. They move on to the next stage. There's no like infighting or anything like that. It was a very quick episode. Everything that happened, I think it was a shorter episode, but also everything that happened quick. There were smash cuts, very quick cuts between scenes and stuff like that. So it definitely like kept me on my toes and there was some great action gearing us into the final. I know I started off with coming in hot, but this episode is kind of like grabbing us by the collar and saying, don't get comfortable. We're going into the end game now. This is not fun, as you said, right? Like it's not going to be fun the whole time. We are in the dark again on Tantiss. Maybe a lot of emotional storytelling didn't necessarily happen in this one, but it's like uncomfortable.
Well, it's setting up the chessboard. We're not in the final battle yet, but we're getting the pieces in place where Omega's back on Tantiss. They're trying to find Tantiss. They're close, and Omega's just now starting to feel out like how she's going to be able to take advantage of the situation. And she doesn't know. She wasn't expecting to be put where she was put. She wasn't expecting to meet the kids. So we're setting up those pieces for our, hopefully awesome series finale. Not even season, but series finale.
The series finale we're getting to. This is the end of the show. There's 3 episodes left. So I will be disappointed if next week it's an episode like this one and we're not building into like the last 2 episodes, right? It feels like it should be leading into this kind of like crescendo. Is that the right musical term?
Totally. Dude, I'm going to push back on that because I kind of like this idea of like, you had mentioned before we started recording, classic podcast cliche, but that, what about Rex? What about Wolf? What about, now we have Rampart and Rampart's got some secret information. So there's all these other loose ends that can culminate. Like maybe it would be kind of cool to have another episode that was just kind of like bing, bang, boom, like grabbing some more information, grabbing some more characters so that we can have an even better final boss battle. A lot of like classic Star Wars endings, there's like several battles going on at one time. It's good and evil, but there's the space battle, there's the underwater battle, there's the out in the field battle, there's the indigenous people and the robots. There's all these things that could potentially happen at once. We have clones against clones, assassins against assassins, Jedis against, Inquisitors, whatever it is. We can have all sorts of things culminating. So I wouldn't mind if they took another episode to set up an even better finale. Maybe if it's not crescendoing, that feels like a weird kind of ramp into the end of a series, obviously. You want to feel like every episode, the stakes are getting higher and higher, which I think they are. It's just that this episode had the bookend rather than the entire thing was kind of straight through.
Yeah, it didn't take much for you to convince me, but you kind of sold me on that idea. But in that there's a lot of stuff to get through here. We do need to go get Wolf, and we need to get Rex and Echo on board. We need to find out how exactly to get to Tantiss. I thought about this while watching this episode the second time. I think I'm a little bit spoiled by these 2 episode things throughout the season. Like there were at least 3 times this season where there were multiple episodes one week and it felt so good. So when something like this happens that feels very quick and short and contained, it's like, oh, I really, really want more than I usually do, So I think that's also part of it, which is nothing bad. Again, this isn't to say that I did not like this episode. I think there's a lot of great stuff in this episode. It's just that it left me wanting a little bit more than other episodes this season.
Yeah, I feel you, dude. You are more generously saying what I normally say in the podcast of like, they changed the format this week.
Yeah.
We did this bookend format this week, which was very minimal time with Omega, with Hemlock, with Emerie, although they did fit a lot within that. But very minimal time, and we spent a ton of time just driving a tank around.
Yeah, that's my favorite part.
Yeah, let's talk about some tanks then.
Let's talk about the Juggernaut tanks.
I make a great tank.
Oh, that's so good. The action in this episode is so good. I just love, first of all, Prison Break. Come on.
Love it.
We're going from Lost references to Prison Break references, but I love like an action-packed Prison Break. And when they're driving that tank, there were also a lot of awesome camera movements. There were like real world camera movements a lot in this episode, which was very cool to see. But when they're driving the tank and like the people are looking out the window and they're like, the tank is accelerating and they go to put up the barriers and Hunter's just like driving over the barriers. Very, again, calm. Wrecker's like, they're closing the bridge and Hunter's just like, I see it. And he's just driving. We get that amazing scene from the trailer with the tank that shoots all the rockets and they just like come out to the side. Whoosh, and it's so cool looking. It's just so good. They're shooting out the wheels and then jumping off the tank. It's like the Fast and the Furious up in here. Just such amazing action and just like, a very engaging moment in the episode, which I don't know. It was just really fun to watch. We get the like, we're running out of road again from the trailer and that whole rescue. And I had seen in the trailer that Hunter was carrying a body on his back when we first watched the trailer. And I was kind of like, who could that possibly be? Turns out it was Rampart. And I love that he just throws him over to Fee's ship. There's some gems. There's some real good moments in the action sequences, backing up a little bit. Some Crosshair Wrecker moments. Do you remember Plan 55? Oh yeah, Plan 55. Got it. Waiting on you. So good. And they get their little like side mission, the 2 of them bonding, which I really loved. Yeah, some really, really good stuff here, I think.
Yeah, if you want to forget about the fact that the season or the series is ending very soon, great popcorn, pew-pews, and explosions. Yeah, and who doesn't love, it wasn't just the prison break, it was the classic sneaking in to the facility, to the Imperial base, So like, for me, I loved so much. Well, I'm going to do the classic Hello Greedo. I love that part of this thing. We're gonna gush over the episode for a moment, even though we kind of poo-pooed the formatting. But this was just so classic Star Wars. And they took a lot of moments to like give you the cues. If you're a Star Wars fan, you're going to love this. They do all these like wide establishing shots. To me, they looked like, you know, the matte paintings you would get in Star Wars. And then they'd green screen in the truck driving by, right? They did such a great job of just like making it look sort of like, we talk how the show animation looks so good. But this was like a different approach to that of like the far wide shot being like a still image that doesn't need to be like animated. It almost felt sort of like painted on with just seeing the trucks or the ships drive in. Oh, I love Fee's ship, the like cargo, the shuttle with the cargo thing. I don't know if we've seen that before.
We haven't. I can't remember if it has a name. I'm sure we'll get comments about it. But yeah, I've been trying to decide if I like that design or not.
It looks like someone took their Lego sets and kind of mashed two things together, sure. But
very front heavy.
So on that note, with her ship, they're flying into the planet, turning off the engines, trying to do a stealth entrance. What I really love, I'm sure a lot of people picked up on this, but she's fiddling around with the pedals on the spaceship, and they throw in this sound effect, and it's like 100% a speeder bike sound effect from Return of the Jedi. And that's one of my favorite scenes of all time when they're going through that forest. All the sound design there, you know, just like the pod race scene. There's no music in that scene. It's just all the engines whirring, all the pew-pews. And somebody found that sound effect, speeder bike gas pedal, and they put it into Fee's ship. Her ship makes the same sound. That's awesome. I love that. Such a nice little wink and a nod that caught my ear, and subconsciously I'm like, okay, I'm in. And then we get so many poetry moments of the doors are magnetically sealed. And even to properties like Solo, I felt like, oh, this is the train heist from Solo. And we never celebrate Solo on this podcast, but I was getting those correlations. So that was a lot of fun. And then I'll get off my everything I love about this episode soapbox with this one last moment when the Juggernaut finally falls off of the cliff and blows up and the Bad Batch is able to escape. There's just a little kinder musical clue. I won't be able to sing it exactly right, but it sounds very similar to when Jabba's sail barge blows up, to when the Death Star blows up. All the heroes get out, lickety-split. You know, we're worried if like Wrecker's going to make it out of that scene when he's kind of jumping over.
For real.
And he makes it out just fine. And it seems to be like a musical cue nodding back to Return of the Jedi. So I feel like even though we're not in the grander, like juicy, meaty, juicy plot lines in this episode, there were all these winks and nods to other stuff that we love in Star Wars. I'm like, I'm getting really amped up about this. I love that. So I'll always be here for it when you put in a sound effect that I'm familiar with, especially when you put in a musical cue that I'm familiar with, or that is at least just reminiscent of. I'm here for these poetry moments always.
Yeah. It's also, those are specifically like very actiony moments from kind of culminating moments in each film. So I think even those are cues and clues to it setting up something big happening here coming up. Like the speeder bike chase and the Solo train heist when it's almost exactly the same scene now that you mention it, where they're trying to get off the top of the train, right? Yeah, all that stuff. I love that. I did not notice any of those. I really like the thing about Fee's ship because it seems like a very custom made ship. And she was like talking to the droid, right? Last episode, she was like, I would repair you just like I did last time, you know? So she like has some sort of mechanical ability. And so I love that maybe speeder bike parts went into making this ship and that's why it sounds that way.
Well, those shuttles are all over Return of the Jedi. So maybe that's a similar, you know, whatever company makes a shuttle makes a speeder bike or something.
Right. Or like the tanks might have eventually become, like these Juggernaut tanks seem to be repurposed Clone Wars tanks. So it may be just the evolution of the technology. The one poetry moment that I did notice is when Crosshair, Wrecker, and Hunter are talking at the beginning of the episode. Crosshair basically had a Rampart is our only hope moment. That I really enjoyed. I really liked that poetry moment. It's like the evil version of what like started Star Wars off in the first place. One of the first things we see is help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope, or at least the scene leading to that. And in this, we get Admiral Rampart of the Empire is our only hope. It's like the evil version, which I don't know. There's also just a fun poetry / anti-poetry moment there. stuff like that, where it's kind of the antithesis of the original meaning of the thing, I think is just so fun and smart and like engaging. I don't know. It like, draws you in.
Dude, so we're celebrating like, the visual direction, trying to invoke some previous Star Wars content. The sound design, literally just dropping in other sound effects that are tying in. Then the writing, of course, you're going to recycle or like reuse dialogue or kind of like repurpose dialogue. The way he said the line was like, but he's also our only option. There was like a second where you're like, is he going to say he's our only hope sort of thing?
Yeah.
So whoever wrote that clearly knew everyone's mind was going to go there. But I'm going to then subvert your expectation and say option, which makes sense because that's Crosshair. What are the options? I'm a soldier, Plan 55. Like, let me go through the book here of all our procedures. He's not going to say hope because that's Leia. She's looking to that brighter future. And not that Crosshair isn't, but Crosshair is of that military mindset. What are the options here? So brilliant writing, brilliant animation, brilliant sound design. We can't say it enough about this show. It's so freaking good.
Yeah, I think I could go on for another 50 minutes about how I think Crosshair is hopeless, and the hopelessness of him saying like, Tantiss is never somewhere I wanted to go back to. That's why I didn't tell you about Rampart earlier. So there is no hope in his mind. I think that they, quote unquote, in charge, like also might reserve phrasing like that for the good guys. And for the bad guys, they're not going to say he's our only hope, right? Because not that Crosshair's a bad guy, but in referencing Rampart. So I really like that all that ties together and that it might stem from Crosshair's hopelessness. He doesn't want to go back. They tortured him there, all that stuff. Such great writing. Kudos to the writers, as always, the animators. I need to go back and watch it a third time so I can pick out all the artistic elements that you're talking about and those other poetry moments, because I really think that if I watch it a third time now, having talked to you about it, I will have that Leonardo DiCaprio meme pointing at the TV of being like, that's the speeder bike sound effect. So anyone listening, now that you've heard that, if you didn't pick up on this, go back and watch the episode again with Krypton Alderaan commentary on in the background. Bring us with you. Then it's like a hard cut to the end. It's almost like an epilogue to the show because the screen goes black and then we see Omega back on Tantiss with the blood being tested. Hemlock somehow knows when to show up to get the results at the exact right time. Hemlock's not looking too good. Hemlock might need some spa day or something. I'm not sure. He's looking a little worn and torn in there, but he knows exactly when to show up to get the lab results. And then he tells us all his evil plans as he's guiding Omega to the vault. I do really appreciate this, like, not really conversation, but the monologue that he gives here. He's monologuing me. But there was like that "did you know" line, which just is infuriating in the way that like this is how an adult probably thinks they need to speak to a child. Did you know that duplicating an M count is impossible, or whatever he says that's like, obviously no one knows that but you, dude, right? Like, did you know? No, because you're the only one. I don't know. That line really made me mad in terms of like, well, obviously no one knows, and also like this is the way adults they think they need to like talk down to kids. But he's just monologuing her the whole time as he's leading her to the vault, which was fine.
I like that. I like a cocky Imperial that can get his comeuppance, Omega's going to pull a fast one on him. He's not going to see it coming. She already escaped once when the Emperor was there, and now here she is back. I do wish there was a little bit of goading from Omega. That's like, I'm exactly where I need to be. When he's kind of saying like, this is your new home right now. The doors slam shut. As if it's a prison, because that's what it is. It's not a home, it's a prison. But that Omega could be like, I'm exactly where I need to be.
Yeah, there were two heartbreaking moments for me in this episode. And one is when Crosshair is talking about Tantiss is somewhere he never wanted to go back to, and he's holding his shaking hand. The second is the way Omega reacts to that shutting door. She like jumps, and he's like, this is your new home, and it shuts, and she like jumps and looks very scared. And it was a very emotional moment for like essentially a child to now be locked in this room, and she has no idea who these kids are or what's going on or anything about it besides like his entire monologue.
Well, that's her, in a way, that's her character flaw. She's so hopeful that she's like, I'll go back there and we'll break everybody out because we have to, I have to sacrifice and go back to Tantiss to save Pabu. And then she doesn't realize like, oh, wait a minute, maybe I made a mistake sort of thing. So I'm sure she'll come to grips with that shortly. She's going to meet all the kids and she's going to befriend all of them. Like that has to happen. There's no possible way that Omega's going to be defeated by this. She's going to be taken aback, but she'll make a new plan because that's what she does. she's not going to have lost the hope. And maybe there'll be some cool parallels there with Crosshair, that he's obviously got to go back and save Omega because Omega saved him. But yeah, I would love to see Crosshair shed a little bit of light as well, rather than to just be, you always use the term tepid. You know, he tepidly wants to go back to Tantiss. So he's not looking forward to it. Like, there's a lot of PTSD there, but he's got to do it, you know? Omega willingly went back, and now he has to kind of unwillingly go back, you know? It's cool. It's good writing. It's good writing.
Yep, I agree. I'm afraid to see Crosshair's next step. I think we could talk a little bit about next steps for Omega, maybe speculate. But I'm really afraid to see Crosshair's next step because for me, throughout the course of this episode, he got less and less comfortable. He did not want to tell them about Rampart, and he finally did, and his hand is shaking. And then once they finally get Rampart, he never takes his helmet off. That is something that I noted. Like, at the end, the other members of the batch, they have their helmets off, and they're talking to Rampart when Rampart's like, no one knows how to get there. That was the point of it. And so, but Crosshair never takes his helmet off, which I have some crazy left field theories about, but also might just be like, Rampart was the beginning of this for all of him. And so there might just be some like trauma there of like Crosshair not wanting to like show his face. So uncomfortable, so traumatic that he wants to like hide under his helmet, which maybe we'll see more of.
Yeah, I didn't pick up on that, but I do like that thematically, that he wanted to retain some confidence just by leaving his helmet on. That makes sense, you know, and he's still grabbing his hand. Like, he's obviously got a lot up in his head that's shaking him. But dude, I'll push back again because like thematically, the things that they're cueing us into, Rampart reaches for a blaster. Crosshair shoots the blaster out of his hand. You know, he didn't miss. And Crosshair is only 50% accurate, okay, right now.
He's getting better. Playing 55.
Right. He's either getting better. Wait, but did he do that shot or was that Wrecker?
So Plan 55 was, from my understanding, the thing was magnetically sealed, so he could shoot the walls and the blaster would bounce off the walls. So he shoots the walls so that the blaster takes out like 4 of the troopers, and then Wrecker shoots the last 2. And that was Plan 55.
So yeah, so he is, 100% accurate, or I guess maybe if you don't count the last 2 guys that were left standing or whatever, but more accurate than AZ said he was previously on the beach during target practice. But I thought that was a cue of like, he was able to shoot a blaster out of the guy's hand and not shoot the actual guy.
Yeah. Now, I think he's getting better, and I think it's a testament to like the meditating with Omega and him coming to terms like it is a maybe more of a psychosomatic thing that he's working on, bettering himself, which is a great theme, cartoon or not cartoon, I think. At the end of last episode, I said that I really, really want to see Omega like force training these kids. We've said it before. She's like met Gunji and was trained in meditation by Gunji, and then the stuff with Ventress and that kind of thing. So she's like picking up all of these elements of kind of like maybe how to be a Jedi or how to tap into the Force without necessarily being able to do it herself. But she's passing these things on. She's like sitting with Crosshair in meditation, and she's meditating at the end of the last episode on her way back to Tantiss. And now she's in a room full of Force-sensitive children. So for the bad guys, her DNA presents the ability to transfer genetic M count without degradation. Nerd. And for the good guys, she might have the ability to bring the Force abilities or tapping into the Force for these kids. That's kind of a good light side, dark side moment for me. And I would just really love to see, I hope the next episode like opens with her kind of like just sitting around that room with those kids meditating.
Yes.
And then Emerie comes in and she's like, you can't be doing this in there. And Omega and Eva are bonding over the doll. Yeah.
Yes. Put the Grogu GIF in the IG suit. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I want them all sitting around one of those tables, and for the guards to be like, no, you can't sit next to each other. Omega just being like, no, everybody just stay, just meditate with me. And then like the whole room starts shaking, it crumbles down, and then they get out of there. Yeah.
That's something I would love to see.
All right, listeners, let's keep this conversation going. We want to know what you felt about this episode. Was it an adventure in the middle? Was it a banger? Were we crescendoing or a decrescendoing? Are we going to have the best Star Wars series finale ever? You know, we've only had a couple of series finales, right? Rebels, Clone Wars, now The Bad Batch. This only happens in animation. Why do they got to do this to us animation fans. You know, I've been here the whole time. I didn't recently just get into animation.
Yeah. Come at me in 7 years.
But we would love to hear from you. Let's keep the conversation going. So leave your comments if you're here on YouTube. Hit us up wherever you like to social media. And of course, subscribe. Be part of our road to 1,000 subscribers. And tune in next week for more nerdy pop culture, but mostly Star Wars. Thanks for listening to the show today. I've been Royce.
I've been Crosshair.
And we've been
Krypton
to Alderaan.